And we are live. It's the Revved Up 906 podcast, a Detroit Pistons podcast to be exact. And I'm Hudson.
And I'm Ryan.
And before we get into episode number 19, I want to give a quick reminder to everybody. Make sure to like and subscribe. Show some love to your Revved Up 906 boys. We are on that grind while the Pistons are still in the season. There is approximately how many games left?
Like 13-ish?
Yeah, like 13-ish games, a little under a month left of the NBA season. So we're grinding on the Revved Up recaps. So make sure to tune into those Revved Up recaps because we are bringing you so much Detroit Pistons content, and we're loving doing it. So we're going to stay on that grind till the season's over. And then also, just like we've been talking about it a little bit more in our personal lives, just a quick sneak peek. We are going to be bringing you in the offseason this summer NBA 2K content. We're going to be doing a lot more Detroit Pistons drafts, and it's going to be all centered around the Detroit Pistons. We're going to do some My GM content, some just overall duels. Ryan's pretty yoked at 2K, so I'm a little worried. We'll have to keep track of the record.
I won't beat you too hard.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. You can't embarrass me on YouTube.
I won't. Don't worry.
So we'll be bringing you some NBA 2K content. We're looking forward to that. We just want something to replace Revved Up Recap, so we're still pushing out content for you guys to watch. So make sure to subscribe and turn on your post notifications to be on the lookout for all that new content. Without further ado, let's get into episode number 19. This week, now that we are getting kind of towards the end of the season, we kind of want to take a look back on statistically this season and then also kind of compare this season to last season. You know, there's a lot of differences and similarities to this year and last year's. You know, this year we're missing Cade Cunningham. I was looking back at the roster from last year. There's actually a lot of guys that are missing from last year that I kind of forgot about because we've been on the grind this year. So as far as comparing this year's and last year's team, how did you kind of go about this topic, Ryan?
I just broke it down in the sense of where we ranked in the NBA in our stats last year and where we ranked this year. And in the first category, which is probably the most important one, is points.
Right.
How many points are we averaging compared to our competition? And currently, this season, we are 28th in the league, which is not good, but it's 111.4 points per game. That's not awful. That's a lot of points.
No, yeah, we were saying that the other week.
But in today's game, now it's a scoring league. It's not defensive. It's scoring.
Right.
So, hey, but this is the craziest thing about this.
Okay.
We are outscoring the Miami Heat.
Right, and they're a great team in the East.
Yeah, they're a good team in the East. They're much more loaded than we are, let's be honest.
Right.
When you have Jimmy Buckets, and you have Bam Adebayo.
I'm a big fan of him.
Oh, my goodness. They have a pretty solid squad over there in Miami. So the fact that we are ahead of Miami, thankfully we're ahead of Houston, but ahead of a good team in the East, in the Miami Heat, that's very impressive, given how young we are. But we're still 28th in the league, which is not good.
Right.
Last year, we were also 28th in the league.
Wow. So we didn't push the button at all.
But we have increased the point total this year. Last year, we averaged 104.8 points per game, and we're at 111.4 now.
It's crazy how fast the NBA pushes forward offensively. Like, in just a year difference, we're averaging how many more? I mean, averaging like seven more points a game, and we're still at 28th in the NBA.
Yeah, first right now is the Kings at 121.3.
Right.
And last year's number one, the Minnesota Timberwolves, 115.9.
It's crazy.
So, like, you can just tell from a year's difference, the league is much more on the scoring side of things than we were last year.
You mentioned the Sacramento Kings. I just wanted to make mention of former Piston Trey Lyles going at it with Brook Lopez last night, I believe. That was just wild. What are your thoughts on that? Because Trey Lyles was kind of a guy that I thought was a peacemaker. He was one of the guys that kept Isaiah Stewart away from LeBron James and their kind of scuffle. I mean, what did you think about Trey Lyles going at Brook Lopez like that?
Well, let's be straightforward here. It was actually Brook Lopez who was in the fault.
Okay.
So Giannis, instead of just dribbling it out like any normal guy would do in the NBA, it's just common courtesy, just dribble it out.
Right.
Instead, he was trying to purposely move into like Trey Lyles and get a foul. And Trey Lyles was like, "What the heck, dude? What are you doing?"
And shoves him.
And then obviously there's a foul. But Brook, given how much time is left in the game, he's already a hothead. So he's obviously going to go and try and protect Giannis in that situation.
Yeah.
And so Brook is just being Brook. Trey Lyles, really, okay, he initiated it, but at the same time, it was really Giannis's fault. I love Giannis, but Giannis, come on.
Yeah,
recently, he purposely went in for a layup against the Wizards, missed the shot on purpose to get a rebound to get a triple-double, and it's like, seriously right now?
It seems like he's kind of changed. I don't know. Maybe he's getting a little too,
He
A-list.
tries to stack the box score.
Yeah.
That's what he's trying to do.
But Trey Lyles, I was so shocked to see that because, like I was saying, I mean, I always thought he was kind of a peaceful guy. That was kind of the role he played, kind of quiet. And then he's just going at the neck of Brook Lopez. I'm like, dang, dude. Like, he's going for the jugular.
Brook Lopez he's just a hothead.
Yeah, it's just Brook Lopez doing what he does. He thinks he's a security guard for Giannis.
Literally.
That's really what he thinks he is. But I just wanted to make mention of that because I'm going to talk later in the episode about former Pistons, and he was a guy that was on the team last year.
He was a key guy last year.
Yeah, he was big for us, honestly. I mean, he was kind of what – I mean, Alec Burks is doing way better than what he was, and they're different positions. But offensively, they kind of – Alec Burks is making up for what Trey Lyles couldn't do last year is really what he's doing.
Right now, Marvin Bagley is a vast improvement over what Trey Lyles could have done.
Yes. It was a great move.
It was.
I love that move.
We really didn't give up anything for Marvin.
No.
And that's the greatest thing ever from Troy Weaver.
Right.
The GOAT of GMs.
Since we're talking about former Pistons, that's one of the things that I kind of put together. We'll get a little bit more into the statistics in a little bit here. But I kind of want to talk about the changes Troy Weaver has made from last season to this. Most notably, we don't have guys like Josh Jackson, Frank Jackson, Trey Lyles, who we just mentioned, and Jeremy Grant from last year.
Don't forget Kelly Olynyk.
Kelly Olynyk, yep. He's playing for the Jazz right now. I was a big fan of him. I also think he mixes very well with the Jazz team. He's proven to be a big guy for them. The reason why I wanted to make mention of this is the pure genius behind Troy Weaver and the moves he makes. Yeah. Now, all the guys we just listed, I'm loyal to them because they are former Pistons. But you have to make note that the guys he's traded away, other than Kelly Olynyk and Jeremy Grant, really aren't huge roles on their respective teams. Josh Jackson, now playing for the Stockton Kings in the G League, not even a two-way contract, just fighting in the G League. So a guy that we moved away, that is now in the G League, proved that he wasn't going to be legit long-term in the NBA. Frank Jackson, playing for the Salt Lake City Stars in the G League.
But he did sign
Is it a two-way?
It is a two-way, and I believe it's a full contract now with the Jazz.
Right. And then there's Luka Garza, who's in a two-way with Iowa Wolves. And then Trey Lyles, I put in my notes, causing havoc on the court against Brook Lopez. That's what I put in my notes. But so it's like these former guys that are like, they haven't stepped up the ladder at all. They're kind of still teeter-tattering.
Honestly, though, in that conversation, too, don't forget Saban Lee, because Saban Lee was a part of the Bojan trade.
Yep.
And now he's with the Suns, and he's actually playing pretty decent.
Yep. So he's a guy that I want to see him succeed so bad. He's a Troy Weaver product, a Dwayne Casey product. And we saw him play at LCA. We saw that Isaiah and Cade still have a good relationship with Saban, which is great to see. As a fan, I love to see that because they all came up together, man.
Yeah.
Like that's awesome to see. So I wanted to make mention of these former players that, are that Troy Weaver moved, and it seemed very intentional. And, we moved guys like Trey Lyles for Marvin Bagley, who's going to probably be dealing with an ankle injury here now.
Yep.
But he was balling previous of that.
He was.
And so there's a lot of these moves for guys that are proving to be solid role players for the Pistons. And we moved them for guys that are now teetering between the NBA and G League. And, if we want to be a winning team, they're not the winning product that we needed them to be at the time. So I wanted to make a quick mention of that.
Yeah, and that's a good quick mention because those guys that you listed off were key guys on our team last year by far. Like Jeremy Grant especially, he was the guy outside of Cade.
Right.
And he did a lot for us. He definitely wanted the ball in his hands a lot. And actually, it's a weird comparison, but him and Bojan are kind of similar in the sense that they want to be ball dominant and they want to be the guy.
I was thinking the same thing.
And not that Bojan has always been in the shadows of other great players. If you think of every single team he's played on, he's never been the guy. And then now he's in Detroit, he has the possibility to be the guy, but he knows he's not.
Right.
But with Cade not being in there, he's like, oh, I'm the guy.
I'm getting my shots.
Yeah. So he's starting to become more ball dominant than we have ever seen him play, just because we don't have our guy out there in Cade. But even without Cade in there, let's be realistic here, Jaden Ivey's our guy outside of Cade. It's not Bojan. But still, I want to point out those two guys are very similar in how they've played between last year and this year.
For sure. And something to make note, too, about Troy Weaver's moves is Jeremy Grant on the Pistons last year, who weren't good again last year, was being tossed around as an all-star. He was in the conversation. This year, he was not in the conversation at all. So that's something to point out, too, is that, yes, Jeremy was good for us at the time, but he wasn't what we needed him to be. And now he's showing that, maybe he was just having a particularly good year with the Pistons. And if we kept him, maybe he would flop this year on the Pistons. Yeah,
and honestly, I think what it is that we make great role players look like superstars when they play for us.
Right.
Like, look at Blake Griffin as an example. He looked like a stud when he was playing for us.
Yeah.
And everybody was like, holy crap, I want Blake Griffin. And I'm like, no, you don't. He sucks.
Right.
Because look at him now. He's a bench warmer.
Yeah. Right. I like that point. And so that's just a point that I wanted to make because, it's I really believe it's just Troy Weaver, like, I'm not saying predicting things, but being like, okay, Jeremy's having a good season, but I don't see him doing this long term.
He knows how to make players valuable and look valuable and just flipping them and fleecing other teams for their good overall players.
Right.
Like just the Marvin Bagley trade alone. And then you look at this past deadline with the Sadiq James Wiseman trade. Like, that actually was a good trade for us.
Yeah.
Because James Wiseman, I keep saying this on all the recaps, he comes out there every night getting better and better each time he's out there.
Yep.
Like 18 points, 14 boards, and 3 blocks.
Yeah.
I'm taking that.
Dude, yes.
Sadiq never did that.
Nope.
Granted, they're not the same position, but Sadiq, given his size, could have done that.
Well, and he didn't have that impact in his way.
Yeah. He's just a different kind of player. And he's having success with Atlanta. He's doing his thing out there.
I hope
he's
he does.
Playing great for them. And so it was a win-win for both sides. I'm sure Sadiq wanted to be with the Pistons long term, but it was just a great overall move for us. But
I know you're a big statistic guy.
Yeah.
What do you have in your genius laptop there? Let's lay down some facts. What do you got?
All right. What kind of stats do you want to listen to? Because I have 6 pages.
Okay, well, just roll with anything there, right, dog?
All right.
I'm ready to listen. I like hearing your statistics, man.
This one we're relating to Jeremy Grant.
Okay.
And Bojan here. 3-point field goals attempted between last year to this year. Okay. Last year, we were ranked 16th in the league at 34.6, which is a lot.
34 3-point attempts.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this year, we are at 32.7.
Okay.
We've shot less, granted, because if you look at it, pun intended, granted, Jeremy Grant shot the ball so much.
Yeah.
And he chucked up three after three after three.
Yeah.
And it always would either go in or it'd brick every single time.
Right.
It wasn't like he had a hot streak. But Bojan, he knows how to shoot. He's a much better shooter than Jeremy Grant there. But then he's also a better shooter than Sadiq is.
Mm-hmm.
So he knows how to shoot the ball, and he knows when to take the right shot. So when you understand the difference there, that's a good difference to have.
Yeah.
And then you compare that to average three-point field goals made, it's about the same thing, if not better than last year's.
Yeah.
Which that's a drastic improvement, given that we're shooting the ball less, but we're making just as much, if not more.
Right.
And that's a very good stat to have, given that today's day and age, it's very three-point heavy.
Mm-hmm.
And then our three-point field goal percentage, last year we ranked 23rd in the league at 32.6, and then this year we're at 10th in the league at 35.2, meaning we're one of the best three-point shooting teams in the league, and nobody pays attention to that because it's the Pistons.
Right.
We're not top tier right now. We're in a rebuild. Nobody's going to pay attention to that stat, but that's a very good stat to be in, given in today's game.
Yeah, and I think definitely the addition of Alec Burks is definitely a big help in that. And then Jaden Ivey is a guy that isn't known for three-point shooting, but he doesn't force them. He's very smart with his shot selection. And so I think that's even another reason why we should be somewhat happy with the moving on from Jeremy Grant, because now our shot selection is a little bit smarter. It's
Jeremy Grant was not smart with the ball.
Yeah, he's kind of like Josh Smith back when, Josh Smith, his last 13 games with the Pistons, dude, he didn't give a crap. He would shoot anything. And
honestly, I think when Jeremy Grant came back from the injury there towards the later end of the season, he's like, if I don't go out there and ball out, I'm getting moved. and he tried to go balling out, but he failed because he still was, during that whole process, I was sitting there going oh goodness, please trade him. He's not doing good at all. And honestly, without him during that stretch, we were playing much better without Jeremy Grant.
Oh yeah.
And so I'm happy that we moved him, and what we moved him for was picks, because that picks turned into Jalen Duren.
Yeah.
And that is phenomenal.
Yeah. And I remember Jeremy Grant went out for 5 games, and we went 3 for 2 in that stretch. We got significantly better.
Yeah.
And it was because Cade was taking over. It was he wasn't having Jeremy hold him back. It was real nice.
And so this brings me to the free throws.
Okay.
Free throws. This is actually another good stat for us. So free throws attempted on average last season, we were 13th in the league, which is still pretty darn good.
Right.
We had 22 free throws attempted per game. This year, we are number 1 in the league at 26.3, which means we're getting sent to the line a lot, and we're shooting a lot of free throws, which is very good.
I like that.
And then you compare that to average free throws made. Last year, we were also 13th at 17.2, but this year we're 4th in the league at 20.2. So we're only missing 6 free throws a game.
And you know what's funny? In recaps, there was a time where we were shredding the Pistons.
Yeah.
We're like, dude, you guys got to make your free throws. And then it's boom, we're 4th in the NBA. I'm like, oh, so other teams must be struggling more than us.
Yeah, and for free throw percentage, we're 11th, which, that kind of sucks, but that's still 11th in the league.
Right, out of 32 teams.
So the fact that we're shooting the three-pointer at a high percentage and getting good shots, making them all pretty much, and then the same thing with free throws, those 2 categories are perfect to be good in.
Right.
Especially with a young team like us.
Totally agree. The Pistons last season at home were technically better than they are this year. So that's the only thing that's unfortunate. At home last year, the Pistons finished 13-28, which I think it was Detroit Kool-Aid I saw was talking about attendance, basketball arena attendance, and the Pistons are in the top 10.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa. And then you look at this and it's ooh, they're 13-28. How are they still have such good attendance? But hey, that's a shout out to y'all, man. Y'all still representing no matter how bad the Pistons are.
Oh,
we
we're
still
loyal.
repping.
We're loyal.
Yeah, we still repping.
No bandwagons here.
No. Oh, no. So this year, so far, with 13 games left, the Pistons are 9-27 at home, and then on the road 7-26. And then last year, throughout the whole season, away games, they were 10-31. So we're on pace to catch both of those.
Yeah.
If we have to rack up a bunch of wins, though. We have to rack up like 9 wins. But it'll be interesting to see how we finish at home. Typically, it's a huge advantage. But the Pistons, I don't know what kind of goes at work there, why the Pistons aren't good at home. I'm not sure what that is.
Yeah. I think it probably has something to do with, so like in our experience playing basketball growing up, like there's been situations for me and my teams where we've gone in there and we're like, oh yeah, this team, we can easily beat them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because they're not good. And then we just, confident-wise, we're too confident, but then we also allow ourselves to play down to their level.
Right.
And then that causes there to be a game and we lose. So I think that has a key part in what our Pistons are doing right now, in the sense of like when you have Indiana coming to town, or when you have Charlotte or Orlando or Houston, some of these lower end tier teams coming in. Now Indiana could possibly make the playoffs this year still.
Right.
But they're just not there yet.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we're walking in to the Little Caesars Arena and you're looking at the other team, you're like, yeah, we could easily beat them.
Whoop up on them.
And then all of a sudden we play down to their level, and then they use that to their advantage and just pound and pound and pound, and then we're going to lose. So I think it's more of like we're overconfident at times, and that overconfidence leads to turnovers. That overconfidence leads to fouls. It leads to just bad mistakes overall, and that allows these teams to just walk in there and beat us.
Something that I find so interesting, the statistics I have breaks down the Pistons stats by month and their records by month. Last season, the Pistons' best month was January. They went 7-9. This year, the Pistons' best month was December. They went 5-11, and if you remember, in December, that was when Killian was going off. Killian had a great December.
Mm-hmm.
This year in January, the Pistons went 3-10. It's very interesting as a Pistons fan to like see it broken down by month. It's like, oh yeah, October we went 2-6, or oh yeah, November we went 3-12. Like, oh, and then so far in March we are 1-6, and last season in March the Pistons went 6-10. So it'll be interesting to see if maybe we can go on a little win streak here. And,
I definitely hope so. I think a key factor in why we're kind of worse than we were last year in that sense is our injuries.
Yeah.
Like, just from our bigs alone this year, and then we also have missed Cade pretty much the whole season. Yeah. So when you're missing the guy, and then you're missing, like, the stretch of missing Isaiah Stewart, Jalen Duren, Marvin Bagley, and all those guys in a row, it's like, how are you supposed to compete with all these teams that have multiple 7-footers?
Yeah.
When you're having like Bojan, who's like 6'8" trying to guard a 7-footer, that's not going to work because Bojan's not big at all.
Right.
And so it's just more of like, how do we match up against teams when we're like depleted with injuries?
Yeah.
And it's just hard to win with that. And so I really think that injuries are a big reason why we're worse than we were last year in the sense of wins and losses.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, Cade last year was a dominating threat for our team.
Yep.
He was a big reason why we were winning games. And then you remove the X factor from us. Not saying that Jaden Ivey and all these guys can't be the X factor, but we all know Cade is the guy.
Right.
And so trying to balance rookies, pretty much the youngest team in the league, with it's hard to do against a vet team, and it sucks when you have injuries.
Totally. I totally agree. And it's not the way you want to end a season.
Yeah.
Maybe if that's something you deal with in the middle of the season, around 20 games in or something like that. But, with a losing team like this, you want to be able to hang your hat on the end of the season because it's already been grueling enough. It's fans have already been put through the ringer. The players have already been put through the ringer. You want to end on a high note.
Yeah.
And, when you're dealing with injuries, that's tough. But, we just talked about in a recap was Eugene's been playing great. You want to say the last name for me?
Amarui.
Amarui.
There you go.
That was it? Okay. And James Wiseman's been playing great. So it's like this season's been definitely a season of having to hang our hats on individual players and seeing their growth.
Yep.
We haven't seen it as a 12-man team quite yet.
Yeah.
But I think when you add Cade in there, when you add in a new draft pick, you know what? Speaking of draft picks, I'm a big fan of Brandon Miller. I'm a big fan.
Yeah, I'm too, but he needs to be careful.
Yeah, I know. He's got some allegations. So, hopefully Brandon Miller can get through that and stay clean. But
that's if we can't get Wemby.
Yes,
that's
I like.
If.
Obviously, I love
Wemby.
Wembanyama, but
because honestly, I'll take Brandon Miller over Scoot Henderson every single day.
That's why I said Brandon Miller a little quiet.
Yeah,
because it's a hot take. But I love Brandon Miller.
In our situation, it's not a hot take though, because if you look at our roster, we're very guard heavy. We don't need Scoot Henderson, even though he could be as good as Jaden Ivey. I'd rather have Jaden Ivey.
Right.
And nobody's replacing Cade anytime soon. Nope. So, Scoot, we don't really want you right now.
We love you, Scoot. But
no, you're going to be a stud.
But we don't want you in Detroit.
You're going to be a stud.
Go to Houston.
Actually, Houston might be good for him.
Yeah, they have so many athletic guys.
Jalen Green, Kevin Porter Jr., Scoot Henderson.
I can see it, man. I can see it.
And then you have Alperen Sengun, who's lighting it up.
Yeah, he's good.
But don't forget Kenyon Martin Jr.
Dunk contest guy.
Yeah.
He kind of failed, but...
He did kind of fail.
We're always going to kind of be like Houston haters just because like we're both the worst teams in the league with like some of the best young guys, most exciting young guys, and we're like, no, we're better than you, Houston.
Oh, Cade's much better than Jalen Green, hands down.
Dude,
it's not even a competition.
So much better, dude.
I don't like how Jalen Green's like, oh, I'm so much better than Cade. It's like, no, you're not, dude.
That's the only that's the biggest reason I wish Cade was healthy, because it's like Jalen Green can't be like, you're hurt, I'm healthy, blah blah blah. Like, oh, it's so annoying because like, dude, Jalen.
And also just the man bun in general, just dude, chop it off. It doesn't look good.
No. Some guys can pull off the man bun, but not Jalen Green.
Nope.
Come on, man. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so I'm a big fan of Brandon Miller. So like I'm excited to see when you add a guy like Victor Wembanyama and then Cade Cunningham and then maybe a Brandon Miller, that's still up in the air. When you add two guys like that, either way, I think the puzzle pieces start to fall in place. I've been saying that.
See, with Wemby there, he is 7'5". But he is also a power forward. He's not a true center.
Right.
So that's very helpful in us because our only power forwards are really Marvin Bagley and Isaiah Stewart now. Yeah. Because Stu, realistically, he's not a center. He's big in terms of weight overall and in terms of being a center, but he doesn't have the height. So he's a 4. Right. But but Stu and Bagley, I love them, but they're role players. Yeah. They're good role players, but they're not the guys. Right. So that's when you allow a guy like Wemby to come in, who is a guy. And if you throw in a lineup of Cade, Ivy, Bojan, Wemby, and then Duren, right, that's solid. And even if we don't get Wemby and you throw in Brandon Miller at the 3, and then you have James Wiseman at the 4, Jalen Duren at the 5, and Bojan as the 6th man, I'm happy with that too. Yeah. Like, that's a solid lineup either way.
I think I'm going to ruffle a couple feathers here, but I want to do it for a clip.
All right.
A couple of years ago, not that long ago, we drafted Isaiah Stewart. Yep. And we're like, man, he looks so much like Ben Wallace. Like, he's built, like, physical, can rebound, block. And then this year happened, and he goes to power forward. He starts making threes. But then it's like, he's not doing much. Yeah. And I have a feeling some people are going to feel a little upset that they compared him to Ben Wallace, because Ben Wallace was the guy. Yeah. Like, let's not hinder what Ben Wallace did, people.
They're not the same.
They're not the same.
Even on draft night, they weren't the same. They just looked similar in terms of build.
Yeah.
That was it.
Like, don't talk down on Ben Wallace like that, man. Like, he brought a chip to Detroit.
He was the leader of that squad by far.
Isaiah Stewart hasn't done anything.
No, he hasn't. It's sad.
And he's a product of Troy Weaver.
I love Isaiah Stewart.
I love him too. But I don't like that comparison anymore because I did at one point, we did an episode on it. Yep. But don't talk down on Ben Wallace like that because Isaiah Stewart's proving to not be the guy we were hoping for him to be.
Yeah.
He's going to be a solid player.
He's going to be a solid player.
But there was one point where we thought he was going to be Ben Wallace.
Yeah.
And he's not, people.
Jalen Duren is closer to being Ben Wallace than Stu is.
Yeah, so clip it. Clip it for Instagram. I want to see what the comments say about me going after Isaiah. I like Isaiah, but he's not Ben Wallace, people. He's not.
No. And Hudson's not really going after Stu here.
He's trying to.
No, you're not. You're not.
No, I'm not.
You're just saying he's not Ben Wallace because a lot of people say he is, but he isn't. They're similar in terms of builds, but Stu it doesn't want to be the defensive anchor. Ben wanted to be the defensive anchor.
Dude.
He wanted to be that guy. He blocked Shaq.
Yeah.
Who has Stu blocked?
Yeah.
I actually don't.
I
don't know.
Yeah. I agree. Sorry, that was a bit of a tangent.
It was,
but I wanted to talk about that because Isaiah Stewart's been kind of getting under my skin lately. Just because, well, one, he's hurt right now. It would have been nice to see him stay healthy.
And actually, to the block point,
yeah,
we're actually ranked lower than we were last year.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just crazy because everybody's like, Stu's Ben Wallace. Well,
he's not helping.
No, he's not.
Statistics-wise,
Well, and then we also had that stretch where we're missing Duren, we're missing Stu, we're missing all these guys.
Right.
It's kind of hard to block shots when you're missing a bunch of guys.
Right.
And then Nerlens Noel wasn't seeing the floor.
No, dude.
So he was the best blocker on our team, but he wasn't seeing the floor.
Though James Wiseman coming in now, 3 blocks against the Pacers last matchup. I mean, he's the kind of guy that makes a difference. I feel like statistically. Let's break down one last stat before we wrap up today's episode. Ryan.
All right. These are probably the most negative ones.
Okay.
Turnovers per game. Last year, we were 11th in the league at 13.4.
So that's not bad.
Yeah, I'll take 11th in the league.
Right.
This year, we're 6th at 14.5. That is terrible. Not good.
Yeah.
Like, we got worse in that category. Granted, if we look at this year's team compared to last year's team, which we pointed out a lot of the guys that are no longer on the team, what were they? They were vets. What is this year's team? Pretty much all young guys.
Right.
So you can understand why it took a jump. It's not a huge jump, but it did take a jump, and that's because we're just younger. And then fouls per game.
Yeah.
Can you guess what we were last year?
Oh, man. I mean, I know it was brutal last year. Were we, third worst in the fouls?
We were first. Do you know what we were last year?
Okay, what?
First. We didn't improve. We actually got worse.
Yeah, right.
Last year we were at 21.9 fouls per game. This year we are at 22.2.
Dude, it's been brutal. It's hard to watch some games. It's like, man. I mean, I know other fans have to be there with us where it's like, man, this quarter has gone on 20 minutes because of fouls.
And honestly, probably the most foul-happy player on our team is Bojan. He loves just fouling people. Yeah,
you were saying he loves doing that, like the James Harden-esque,
just hug the guy.
Yeah,
that's always what he does. It's like there goes one of the let's say there goes Jalen Green on a wide open layup. Bojan's like, no, you're not going to do that. I'll hug you.
Yeah, another guy that's Mr. Foul is Killian.
Yep.
Killian just falls for everything. Also Isaiah Livers.
Yeah,
he falls for
Jalen Duren early on, but not anymore.
He's gotten better with that. And James Wiseman.
Same with Wiseman and Ivy.
They've all gotten better,
which is good. It's called growth, people.
Yeah, I love it. Any last thoughts or takeaways before we wrap up episode number 19?
We did see a lot of improvements from this past year to this year, and it's going to keep getting better. Just trust the process, as Joel Embiid would say. And we're going to be smooth sailing in no time because we have a young, star-studded squad.
Yep.
And if you add in Wemby or you add in a guy like Brandon Miller, doesn't have to be Brandon Miller, but like him, we're going to be fine because there's a lot of potential with this upcoming draft. And we have a couple moves that Weaver knows how to make. He knows how to fleece teams. And just watch out.
Yeah, I mean, if he does anything like he has the past 2 seasons, it's going to be another busy summer. Yeah. And that's why, like, on most teams, I wouldn't be worried about Killian getting moved. I wouldn't be worried about Isaiah getting moved, like some of our, like, product guys.
Yeah.
But with Troy Weaver, he's such a pull-the-trigger guy. Like, we saw him give away Sadiq, and Sadiq
honestly,
was one of our most consistent guys.
I can see Isaiah Livers getting moved this offseason.
Yeah.
And it's just because he has shown multiple flashes that he can be what Troy has wanted him to be. But then he has games where it's like he doesn't really do jack.
Right.
And it's like, I could easily move him.
It's worrisome.
And it's also like you can open up a ton of cap space because Livers' contract is coming up soon, and he's going to want at least 10 mil plus.
Yep.
And so it's like Weaver could easily move him away for a second-round pick, use that second-round pick to package in with something else, and then boom, we have like another Jaden Ivey or another Cade or another Jalen Duren.
Right. I wouldn't put anything past Troy Weaver. And Troy Weaver, we trust.
Yeah.
Well, that will do it for episode number 19. We have officially partnered up with Grind Clothing Co. for our first merch drop. So make sure to go in the link below, and in our YouTube bio, you can find those links to our merch. We have sweatshirts, hats, T-shirts, all kinds of different things. Yep. So shout out Grind Clothing Co. and make sure to go follow them on Instagram. We really appreciate that partnership. And we're looking to maybe do another merch drop soon. Me and Ryan have to kind of get together and get our brains together and put some ideas on paper, and we'll bring you guys some fire merch. We will see you guys in the next episode. Peace.